A very good morning, students. This is Mr. Ravi Kumar, PGT English, INS Kalinga. Today, we are going to take up the poem named Keeping Quiet, written by Pablo Neruda. Let's learn something about the poet Pablo Neruda. Pablo Neruda is a Chilean poet. Pablo Neruda was born on 1904 and died in the year 1973. Pablo Neruda is the pen name of Neftali Ricardo Reis Basalta, a famous Chilean poet, diplomat, and politician too. He won Nobel Prize for Literature in the year 1971. He wrote poems in green ink, which was his personal symbol of desire and hope. His writings are simple, wherein lies their beauty. Originally, all his poems were written in Spanish language and they have been translated into several other languages. The poet feels that some soul searching should be needed for us to be at peace with ourselves and with others. Introduction to the poem. The poem Keeping Quiet, written by Pablo Neruda, is basically a poem against war and violence. There are many problems in the world like wars, violence, unrest. Apart from environmental issues like global warming, deforestation, and animal poaching. So what could be the solution for all these problems? Is there any single solution for all these problems? Now, the poet Neruda comes out with a single striking solution to all these problems, that is keeping quiet and self-introspection. He feels that a few moments of introspection will bring peace, harmony, understanding, and universal brotherhood in the world. Let's read the poem Keeping Quiet. Now, we will count to 12 and we all keep still. For once on the face of the earth, let's not speak in any language. Let's stop for 1 second and not move our arms so much. It would be an exotic moment, without rush, without engines. We would all be together in a sudden strangeness. The fisherman in the cold sea would not harm whales, and the man gathering salt would look at his hurt hands. Those who prepare green wars, wars with gas, wars with fire, victory with no survivors, would put on clean clothes and walk about with their brothers in the shade doing nothing. What I want should not be confused with total inactivity. Life is what it is about. I want no truck with death. If we are not so single-minded about keeping our lives moving and for once to do nothing, perhaps a huge silence might interrupt the sadness of never understanding ourselves and of threatening ourselves with death. Perhaps the earth can teach us, as when everything seems dead and later proves to be alive. Now, I will count up to 12 and you keep quiet, I will go. Let's see the stanza-wise explanation and the main points. Stanza 1. Now, we will count to 12 and we all keep still. For once on the face of the earth, let's not speak in any language. Let's stop for 1 second and not move our arms so much. It would be an exotic moment, without rush, without engines. We would all be together in a sudden strangeness. Explanation of the poem, stanza 1. The poet Pablo Neruda, from the very beginning, urges the people to count up to 12 and remain silent. According to the poet, the number 12 is very, very significant. There are 12 numbers on the dial of the clock which measures our life, and 12 months fill the year. The poet then asks people to keep silence once on the surface of the earth. He asked people not to speak in any language because language divides people. It creates barriers among the people. It also leads misunderstanding, confusion, and chaos and miscommunication and so on. So he says that instead of speaking different languages, let's all speak in one language, that is the universal language, silence, which can be understood by everybody. He urges people not to raise weapons upon others by involving in arguments, because arguments lead to quarrel and quarrel leads to violence. The word arms also stand for weapons. He also asks people not to use any weapons and destroy the mankind. By asking people to lay down the weapons, he is making call to bring peace in the world. When people across the world keep quiet, suspending their activities, it would be really an exotic moment, because it had never ever happened in the history of mankind. If people suspend their activities, there won't be any rush on roads. No buses and trains move. All engines and factories would come to halt. In that sudden strangeness, all people get united. So he suggested a few moments of silence and introspection, because people are always after the materialistic benefits. In that rat race, they never understand about themselves, about the society and the surroundings and even the nature. So he suggests a few moments of silence and introspection. Now I'll quickly revise the main points of the stanza 1. The poet feels that there is a need of soul searching by individuals through introspection. He urged people to count to 12 and remain silent. He asked people not to create barriers by talking different languages. Instead, he wants people to speak one language, the universal language, that is silence. The poet asks us not to raise arms against the people and destroy the mankind. People all over the world keep silence, suspending their activities, would be an exotic moment. Then there won't be any rush in public places. Buses, trains, engines of all factories would come to a halt. People find some time to spend with his fellow beings. People get united in that sudden, strange moment. Let's move to the second stanza. Fisherman in the cold sea would not harm whales, and the man gathering salt would look at his hurt hands. Those who prepare green wars, wars with gas, wars with fire, victory with no survivors, would put on clean clothes and walk about with their brothers in the shade doing nothing. Let's see the explanation. Now you can see in this slide various pictures of wars. The poet Pablo Neruda says that the fisherman will not hunt fish in the cold sea, then what happens? The entire aquatic life will be saved. Here the poet is trying to bring harmony between the oppressor and oppressed class. The fisherman stands for exploitative group and the whale stands for an oppressed group. The man gathering salt will find breathing space to look into his life and can look after himself. He can think and analyze his words and deeds. So the poet says here that all kinds of wars are useless because they only bring death and destruction. The wars with fire, wars with gas, and the green wars like global warming, deforestation, extraction of oils, minerals, etc. are in vain, as they only bring death and destruction. The poet mocks at the winners of war. He says, if the winner does not find any survivors to rule upon, such victory is really a meaningless victory. So Neruda says that these warmongers should stop wars and walk with their brothers doing nothing. They should leave their blood-stained clothes or greedy and selfish attitude and then adopt a new approach towards the fellow beings and society and walk with their brothers doing nothing. I just quickly revise the main points of stanza 2. If people suspend their activities, there won't be any harm to other species. The aquatic life will also be saved. It would bring harmony between oppressed and oppressor class. The man involved in various works would find some space to think and to introspect and to analyze actions. Then they can look after themselves. All kinds of wars must be stopped, as they only bring death and destruction to mankind. Wars with fire, wars with gas destroy life, whereas green wars destroy the nature. Poet mocks at the winners of war as they don't find any survivors to rule upon. The poet says that they must stop all the production of weapons and preparation of wars. So they should leave their selfish and greedy ways and adopt new approach towards the society. Then we move to the third stanza. What I want should not be confused with total inactivity. Life is what it is about. I want no truck with death. If we were not so single-minded about keeping our lives moving and for once to do nothing, perhaps a huge silence might interrupt this sadness of never understanding ourselves and of threatening ourselves with death. The explanation: Neruda wants to clarify the difference between total inactivity and temporary silence. He does not want us to be total inactive because total inactivity is equal to death. Life is full of activities. So what he wants us to be very active. He wants us to be passive bodily or physically, but our mind should be active in introspecting ourselves. People should not be carried away by the single, selfish and self-centered agenda. They don't even think what harm they are doing to themselves and to the fellow human beings and to the nature and to the society. So, perhaps a huge silence and introspection might bring a change in the attitude of man. The man is surrounded by sadness that comes to him due to never understanding himself and never understanding the society. The man even is unable to enjoy success and always threaten himself with the targets to be achieved before his death. So I will quickly revise the main points of stanza 3. So here, once again, Neruda clarifies the difference between temporary silence and total inactivity. He says life is full of activities. So, he doesn't want us to be inactive. Inactivity is equal to death, and death is also a natural phenomenon. He wants just a few moments of introspection. Neruda just wants us to take a tiny portion of our time to introspection. Though their body is passive, their mind should be active in introspecting themselves. People should not be carried away by single and selfish agenda. They don't think about themselves, about the neighbors and society in their rat race. The sadness around man will also be removed after introspection. The man even threatening himself by keeping targets to be achieved before his death. Let's move to the stanza 4. Perhaps the earth can teach us, as when everything seems dead and later proves to be alive. Now, I will count up to 12. You keep quiet, I will go. Let's see the explanation. The poet says that the earth is a great example which shows the power of silence. And it teaches the power of silence. The earth in winter season is covered with snow, and the earth that time appears to be lifeless, dull, and inactive. But after winter season, the snow gets melted and the earth appears. It gives life to the seeds buried under the soil. The temporary silence is not a waste of time. The poet, in his concluding lines, says that he wants to leave the place quietly as he has already initiated the process of introspection. Now it is up to us to follow his dictum. The poet finally says that a few moments of silence and introspection would benefit person, fellow human being, and nature. There will be peace, harmony, understanding, and universal brotherhood in the world. Then the world will be a very happy place to live in. Let's see the main points of the stanza 4. The earth is a great example which speaks the power of silence. In winter season, the earth is covered with snow and the earth appears dull, inactive, and lifeless. After the winter season, the snow gets melted and the earth gives life to the seeds buried under it. The temporary silence that the earth spent under the snow is not a period of waste. That is a period of silence which is a productive one. The poet says he has done his part by delivering his message. The poet has already initiated the process of introspection. Now it is up to us to follow his dictum. Then not only the person, but his fellow human beings, society, and even nature gets benefited. The world will be without wars, violence, and unrest. Now, talking about the poem, this poem is written in a free verse. What is free verse? The poem has been written in free verse. Free verse is type of poetry that does not contain patterns of rhyme. Let's see the poetic devices used in the poem. Keeping quiet. First one, we'll count to 12. Here, W the consonant sound gets repeated, which we call as alliteration. The line 1 and line 2 will see the alliterations. And number 2, count and still, two opposite ideas put together. Therefore, it is called antithesis. A literary device called antithesis. And then third one, arms. The literary device employed here is pun. What is pun? So, one word has different meanings. It's called pun. One meaning is hands, the other meaning is arms, means weapons. So, the literary device employed here is a pun. And now, fourth literary device, let's not speak, let's not raise our arms so much. Here, the poet used let's in two consecutive lines. This is called anaphora. This is called anaphora. And now, literary device 5, without and without. So, the same word gets repeated. Therefore, writer applied here repetition. And the sixth literary device, sudden strangeness. Here the S sound gets repeated, so it is alliteration. And the seventh one, cold sea. Cold sea is symbol. It is symbolized as a polar region. Another literary device employed here is a transferred epithet. The cold sea, the coldness is attributed to sea here. And eighth literary device is hot hands. Again, H sound gets repeated, therefore it is alliteration once again. 9, wars with fire, wars with gas. W sound gets repeated, therefore here alliteration is used. Similarly, wars, the word wars repeated, so therefore it is also repetition. And 10th literary device, dead and alive. Two opposite ideas put together, therefore it is antithesis. The last and final one, the earth can teach us. Here the earth is personified. Earth is given life. So it is personification. The literary device employed by the author, the last stanza, is personification. Let us see some important question and answers. Question number 1. Why did the poet ask people not to speak in any language? Answer. The poet asked people not to speak in any language because language divides people and creates barriers among people. It also leads to misunderstanding and confusion. Question number 2. What is an exotic moment that referred to in the poem? Answer. People all over the world keeping quiet, suspending their activities would be an exotic moment which had never happened in the history of mankind. Question number 3. Why does he suggest a few moments of silence and introspection? Answer. The poet suggests a few moments of introspection because they are in rat race. They are in rat race. They don't find time to think about themselves, about fellow beings, and about nature. So he wants a few moments of silence and introspection. Fourth question, explain the statement, victory with no survivors. The poet explains that if the winner does not find survivors to rule upon, it would be a meaningless victory. Therefore, he mocks at the winners. Once again, the poet mocks at the winners of war. He says, if the winner does not find survivors to rule upon, it would be a meaningless victory. Question number 5. How does Neruda clarify the difference between total inactivity and silence? Yeah, poet Neruda clarifies difference between total inactivity and silence. He says total inactivity means doing nothing physically and mentally, but life should be full of activities. He wants us keep silence for a moment wherein you introspect your words and deeds. Your body may be inactive, but your mind should be active in the period of silence and introspection. The last and final question: how would keeping quiet affect life in and around the sea? Answer: according to the poet Pablo Neruda, keeping quiet will save the environment too. The fisherman will not hunt the whales, it will save the marine life. There will be harmony between oppressor and oppressed. Thank you so much.